Hey everyone, and welcome as we continue our study through the New Testament, looking at the 250 events in the life of Jesus. Today we're looking at Jesus healing a government official's son, and this comes from John 4, verses 46 through 54. And the way this starts out, he was traveling through Galilee. This is after he had come up from Judea up through Samaria, and now he's in Galilee. And he came to Cana, which is where he actually turned water into wine. So this is where he performed his first miracle. And as he's there, this government official comes up to him and is begging him to heal his son, who is in Capernaum. And so, more than likely, we see in verse 46, more than likely, the government official is probably an officer in Herod's service. He walked about 20 miles to see Jesus, and he addresses him as Lord. So, when he's not talking down to him. He knows that the way he has to talk to Jesus, and so he's talking to Jesus in a purposeful way. He's actually putting himself under Jesus, which is not something that the officials in Herod's court would have done back then, because he had legal authority over him, but he was desperate, and he knew, he had heard of Jesus' reputation and that he could heal people, and so he was begging him to come heal his son. And so we see this in verse 47. He um he went and begged Jesus to come to Capernaum. And so this wasn't a little bit of asking. It was probably more of a almost, I wouldn't say groveling, but it was a very, very desperate plea for Jesus to come to come and help heal his son. And so we see that, and Jesus at first says, in verse 48, he says, "Will you never believe me unless you see miraculous signs and wonders?" And so, it's interesting that we see Jesus respond this way to this guy. And so he says, "Unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe," is a challenge not only to the royal official. So he's using this as a time to not only challenge the royal official, but also to the Galilean people, because the "you" that he uses there is plural, not just him. So he's talking about the people there, because a lot of the people there were, they were enticed by the signs and the miracles and the wonders, and they failed to see and point to Jesus as the Messiah, and who he is, and believe in him. They're just there for a lot of his miracles and healings. And we see this a lot in the church today. There's a lot of people who are there, in the church. They don't really see Jesus. They're there sometimes to see what the church can do for him, and that frustrated Jesus. We see this repeatedly as he goes through. But in verse 49, the officer continues to plead, and he says, "Lord, please come now before my child dies." And so Jesus, using that as an example, still having compassion for this man, tells him to go back home. Your son will live. And so and 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 so the man believed him and did what he stated. I mean, that takes a lot. It takes a lot. Because at this point Jesus had only healed people by touching them and being there around them. He'd never healed someone from a distance of 20 miles. And so it took faith. That government official had so he believed he could heal him. And so he obeyed him by returning home. He went home, and so he demonstrated his faith in Jesus there. But still, I think you still see this. I think, I don't think the Roman official really understood who Jesus was yet. I don't think he just knew that, hey, this man's healing people and heal my son. And so I don't know if he quite understood who he was. But this points to the fact this isn't enough for us to say that we just believe and Jesus will take care of our problems. We can't do that. We can't just do, we have covered this several times. Like, just saying that you believe or just believing isn't enough. You have to act on that belief. And we see the official here, the government official, do that. He does. He believes Jesus, so he acts on that faith, and he does what Jesus tells him to do. And we have to do that same thing. And so finally, in verse 53, he gets home in verse 52, and he asks when did the boy begin to feel better, and they let him know it was a 1 o'clock that his fever disappeared, and he realized that was the time that Jesus told him that his son would live, and so that his entire household believed at that point. His entire household believed that, and so I want you to notice with verse 53 how the official's faith grew, and how our faith can grow. it says first he believed enough to ask Jesus to help his son, right? And we have to have that initial belief. But second, he believed Jesus' assurance that his son would live, and he acted on it. And that's the same thing we have to do. Like I said, it's not just enough for us to believe that Jesus is who he is. We have to act on that belief. We can go around saying we believe all we want to, but if we never do anything to prove or show that belief, then it's a dead belief. We talk about faith without works is dead. James talks about that. And it's the same way here. We can have faith, we can believe, but if there's no action behind any of that, then it's useless. It's dead. There's no point in it. And so third, and this is another part of our faith that we will see, he and his whole household believe in Jesus. Faith is a gift that continues to grow. If true faith is a faith that continues to grow, it's not just something that starts with you, like, oh, I believe and I'm going to act, but then it just, no, if you have a living, active faith, that faith is going to grow and it's going to spread to other people in your family, your friends. And so you're going to see this, and we see this every time, or many times, when someone comes to faith and believes in Jesus. Not only does it affect them and you see a change in them, but it ends up affecting their entire household and their entire family. And so the whole point of this lesson is, we've got to, there's a couple of things that we see here. And I talked about this at the beginning. We're going to have people like Jesus did who followed him around. And the only reason they followed him around was to see his miracles or to benefit from him. Right. And we're going to have people who will do that with the church today. We're going to have people who they're going to follow or be part of the church, or they're going to be there, but they're basically going to be there to watch. Just to watch and see what happens and see, get the benefits of things that happen to help them, but they're not really going to act and truly, spread Jesus or really call or move to the call that Jesus has asked us to. You're going to have a lot of people who just come and sit in the pews or sit and listen, where depending on your context of how your church looks like, and that's about it. They're not really going to grow in faith. And unfortunately, that's just part of the case. We see that if Jesus had that problem, then what makes you think we're going to have any less of problems when it comes to that? But then we're going to have people who, like this government official, who they're going to have faith and they're going to act, and they're going to spread that faith. And those are the people we need to try to work with the most. Not to say that we shouldn't try to work with those who just come and sit, but we need to see these people and use these people who, I say use, but work with the people who are going to act on their faith the most and be the most faithful. And you see this with Jesus, because eventually you're going to see Jesus. He'll start doing things that, if you're just a follower that just following for the entertainment value or for what you can get out of it, he starts doing things and saying things that makes it really hard for those people, and they end up believing. And I believe and we'll see he does this on purpose, because that's not the kind of followers Jesus wants. Jesus wants people who are going to truly act and truly be who he's called people to be. And those are what we need to look for. And that's what we need to push for in our churches and in ourselves to become more like that. So again, a good story we see. This is the second time that Jesus has performed a miracle once he's returned to the Galilee area. And so again, just take that in mind as you read this and dive deeper into it. So again, I appreciate everyone for watching. I hope these are useful and beneficial to you. Tomorrow we are going to look at some fishermen following Jesus, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into that story. But again, as always, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please go ahead and try. Again, we're going to do more studies than just going through the New Testament. We're going to look at the Gospels. We're actually going to look at every single a book in the New Testament. And we're actually going to dive into some off studies as well and go through some tougher subjects that a lot of, that we don't really dive really deep into a lot of times. And so we're going to do that. But again, I encourage you to subscribe. I encourage you to share if you think this is beneficial. And as always, I appreciate you watching.